Think you're brave enough to watch until the end? These 11 ghost videos aren't just creepy, they're unexplainable. From shadowy figures to haunted live streams, each story dives deeper into the paranormal. But be warned, some viewers never sleep the same again. The trouble with old houses is that they remember things. Their bones creak with memories, and their silence isn't really silence. It's listening. That's what Oliver told himself years later when he tried to explain away what happened that night. Not to anyone else, of course. He never told a soul outside the three who were there. But in the dark, in bed, when the memories rose like fog, that's how he framed it. The house had remembered something. Something it shouldn't have. Something it didn't want to forget. It started with boredom, as most bad ideas do. A long, gray weekend in the Yorkshire countryside, early November, where the days bled into each other like watercolor. Oliver, his best friend Tyler, and Tyler's cousin Ethan had been left to their own devices, while Tyler's parents took a brief anniversary getaway. 3 teenagers, alone in a centuries-old stone house surrounded by woods, armed with fast Wi-Fi, energy drinks, and a complete inability to sit still. Tyler had just gotten a new camera, a proper one, with night vision and 4K capabilities, and the first night passed with harmless ghost hunting pranks around the house. The second night, they wanted something more, something real. That's when Ethan brought up the Crowhurst house. "It's just down the ridge," he said, poking at the fire in the hearth with a stick. "About a mile through the woods. Real old. Boarded up now. They say the attic's haunted." Oliver smirked. "They? Who's they?" "The ghosts." Ethan shrugged.
"Locals."
"I don't know. I heard a couple kids say it back at school. There was some fire there. Back in the 60s. Family lived there, man, wife, 2 kids. Then one day, nothing. Whole place went dark. They found the man outside, covered in soot and blood, just laughing. No one ever saw the others." Tyler leaned forward. "That actually true?" "Dunno," Ethan said. "But the attic is supposed to be where it started. That's where the fire began. Some people think the wife went crazy. Others say the man did. Either way, the place is cursed now." The word cursed hung in the air like wood smoke. Tyler grinned. "We should go." Oliver hesitated. "It's like what?" "Midnight." "All the better," Tyler said. "Come on. We'll get some awesome footage. It'll be our own paranormal special." Ethan nodded. "I bet we go viral." Oliver wasn't so sure. He didn't like the way Ethan had said that last part, with a little too much excitement, as if he knew something he wasn't saying. Still, peer pressure in the dark is a powerful thing. 15 minutes later, they were bundled in coats and gloves, walking single file through the thick forest, flashlight beams bouncing between the trunks like ghost lights. The path to Crowhurst house was barely more than a trail. The trees seemed to lean in as they walked, branches brushing their coats and tugging at their hats. The temperature dropped noticeably, even though they hadn't climbed in elevation. When they reached the clearing, Oliver stopped cold. The house stood like a wounded beast. Its stone walls were blackened with soot, windows boarded with weathered planks, and the roof slanted like it was sagging under the weight of time. One of the chimneys had collapsed. The front door hung open just a crack, like it had been waiting for them. "Whoa," Tyler breathed. "This place is awesome." Ethan raised his phone and started recording as Tyler led the way in. The front steps groaned under their weight. Inside, the air was thick with rot and something else. Something metallic and sweet. Mold. Maybe rust. Maybe blood. The hallway opened into a parlor filled with collapsed furniture, old newspaper clippings, and broken picture frames. Everything was coated in dust and cobwebs. They explored the downstairs first, narrating for the camera. "As you can see," Tyler said, swinging his flashlight dramatically, "we're in what appears to be a sitting room. Smells like something died in here. Probably a demon." Oliver forced a laugh, but he kept close to the beam. The shadows didn't feel normal. They clung to the corners like they didn't want to be disturbed. Upstairs, Ethan said after 10 minutes. That's where the attic is. The staircase was narrow and steep. Each step protested under their boots. At the top was a hallway with 3 doors, one to a bedroom, one to what might have been a nursery, and one at the end that stood slightly ajar. From the angle of the roof outside, Oliver could tell it led to the attic. That's when everything went quiet. Not just their voices or footsteps, but everything. No wind.
No creaking boards.
Even their breathing seemed muffled, like the air was thicker up here. You guys feel that? Oliver asked. Tyler nodded slowly. Yeah, like we're underwater or something. Ethan was already at the attic door. Come on, he whispered. This is it. The door creaked open on its own as they approached. A narrow staircase led up into total blackness. Tyler turned on his camera's infrared. After you, Ethan. Ethan hesitated for the first time all night, then slowly ascended. Oliver followed reluctantly, the last of his confidence draining with each step. At the top, the attic opened into a triangular space with wooden rafters and a warped floor. Old trunks and boxes were piled along the edges. A single broken rocking chair sat in the middle, facing away. Why is that always the creepiest thing? Tyler whispered. Ethan scanned the room with his phone light. Because rocking chairs are cursed. Everyone knows that. But the chair didn't move. Not yet. Tyler took a step forward, filming everything. Okay, let's see if we can get any activity. If there are any spirits here, make yourself known. Silence. Oliver felt a chill race up his spine. He looked toward the far corner, where the shadows were thickest. Something felt wrong. Not just spooky, but predatory. Like something was watching them, waiting for them to get comfortable. That's when the rocking chair moved. Just a little. A small creak. Then another. And then it stopped. They all froze. Did you see that? Tyler asked, his voice cracking. Oliver nodded. It moved. It definitely moved. Ethan's phone shook slightly. Guys, look at the corner. They turned. Something shifted in the darkness. A form, black on black, slid along the wall like a shadow escaping a body. It was tall, impossibly thin, and wrong. It didn't crawl. It flowed. Back up, Tyler said. Slowly. They did. Step by step toward the attic stairs. The shadow didn't follow. But it didn't vanish either. It lingered, watching. When they were back on the main floor, Oliver finally exhaled. What the hell was that? I don't know, Tyler said, voice shaking. But we got it on video. They ran the footage back at the house, hands trembling. The shadow was clear. It moved with purpose. It turned toward the camera at one point, and for a single frame there were eyes. White, gleaming, staring into the lens like it knew them. Like it was memorizing their faces. Ethan said nothing. He left that night, refusing to stay another minute. Tyler and Oliver barely slept. But the nightmare didn't end there. Over the next few days, strange things began happening. The footage corrupted. One section played in reverse even though no one edited it. Tyler's camera stopped working altogether, just static. Then the dream started. Tyler was the first. He dreamt of the attic. Always the attic. But in his dream, he couldn't leave. The door was gone. The rocking chair was always in motion. And the shadow was closer. Each night, a little closer. Then Ethan stopped answering messages. Oliver tried to forget. He deleted the clips from his phone. Threw out the backpack he'd worn that night. But it didn't help. He'd find soot on his bedsheets. Small handprints on his window from the inside. A week later, he woke up to find his bedroom cold. Unnaturally so. He sat up, and the rocking chair from the attic was sitting at the foot of his bed. It was rocking, and in the corner, barely visible, the shadow was waiting. Brandon Cho never considered himself easily rattled. He'd been a property inspector in western Pennsylvania for nearly 15 years. Crawling through derelict homes, mold-choked crawl spaces, flooded boiler rooms, and the occasional rat's nest of wiring so botched it looked like it was designed to kill. Nothing scared him anymore. Until 2019, when he took a last-minute gig from a private client who refused to give his name over the phone. "Cash job," the voice had said. "No paperwork. Just take a look at the basement. One visit. In and out." The address was in Braddock, a crumbling brick duplex on a dead-end street not far from the old steel mills. The kind of neighborhood that always felt like it was holding its breath. Brandon arrived around 5:30 p.m., the sky already bruised purple, the air thick with rain that hadn't started yet. The house looked abandoned. The front windows were dark, the lawn a patchwork of weeds and gravel. The lockbox code worked, though, and inside, everything smelled like stale wood and copper pipe. He walked the ground floor first. Typical. Dusty. Warped floorboards peeling wallpaper. Then he found the basement door. It was padlocked from the outside. That gave him pause. It wasn't standard. Most homeowners didn't bother locking up a basement unless there was something valuable down there, or something they didn't want getting out. Brandon debated turning back. But the cash offer had been good and he needed it. His own furnace had died last week, and winter was coming fast. He pried the lock open with a flathead and opened the door. The smell hit him first. Not mold. Not rot. Something else. Acrid, sweet, and metallic. The kind of scent you'd expect in a hospital freezer or inside a broken meat locker. The stairs creaked under his boots as he descended, flashlight beam dancing off damp stone walls and exposed wiring. There was no power, just the echo of his own breath and the soft hiss of moisture dripping somewhere unseen. Halfway down, his flashlight flickered. He banged it once against his palm and it steadied. The basement opened into a large, unfinished room with low ceilings. One small, barred window sat high up on the far wall. A furnace rattled faintly in the corner. Dead, but still exuding cold like a tombstone. Water pooled near the back, reflecting the light in nervous ripples. Brandon stepped forward, jotting mental notes. Cracked support beam. Asbestos tiling. He swept his flashlight toward the back wall and froze. There was something written there, scrawled in white chalk. Uneven, shaky handwriting that ran from the floor to the ceiling. Hundreds of lines, all repeating the same phrase over and over. "Don't let her out." He backed up a step. The beam trembled slightly in his hand. He wasn't superstitious, but this was different, ritualistic, deranged. He approached slowly, angling the light closer. The handwriting shifted near the bottom. Bigger letters. A different hand, more frantic. "She doesn't scream until you hear her." Brandon turned. There was no one behind him, but he heard breathing. Deep, wet, close. He swept the flashlight around. Empty room. Stillness. But something inside him buckled. That primal part of his brain, the one left over from the forests and caves of early man, was screaming at him to leave. Now, he backed toward the stairs. That's when he heard it. A scream so loud, so violent, that it shook dust from the ceiling. Not a human scream. Not fully. It started high-pitched, almost childlike, but warped into something guttural, full of rage and grief and hunger. Brandon dropped the flashlight. It spun across the wet floor, casting chaotic beams against the walls. The chalk writing began to dissolve. Melting, it seemed like wax exposed to heat. Another scream. Closer. He ran. Bounding up the stairs 2 at a time, he slammed the basement door shut and yanked the lock chain through. He leaned against it, heart hammering, sweat freezing to his back. Silence. Then a whisper, just behind the door. "I'm not in the basement anymore." Brandon didn't remember leaving. Not fully. 1 minute he was frozen against the door. The next he was in his truck. Keys shaking in the ignition. Tires screaming down the cracked street. He didn't stop driving until he reached the gas station outside town. He never sent the invoice. Weeks passed. Then months. Brandon stopped taking private jobs altogether. He focused on commercial inspections. But the nightmares came anyway. Always the same. A basement without walls, just blackness and breathing, and that scream muted at first. Then inside him. One day he found white chalk markings on his bedroom wall. Just one line. "She doesn't scream until you hear her." He painted over it. That night the screaming returned, from inside the walls. He moved apartments, then cities, cut contact with everyone who knew that neighborhood. But it didn't matter. Wherever he went, she followed. Every few nights, he'd hear it again. That voice, "I'm not in the basement anymore." Started like any normal day for Aya Nakamura. Her morning commute was predictable. Half-asleep shuffle to the train station, 10-minute wait, and a 15-minute ride into the city. She lived in Setagaya, just outside of central Tokyo, where the trains were clean, the tunnels were deep, and everything ran with machine-like efficiency. It was the kind of city where the surreal felt impossible, too grounded in timetables and neon logic. But on October 22, 2022, during the 7:13 a.m. run on the Shinjuku line, something happened that would burn itself into Aya's memory and unravel everything she thought she understood about reflection, reality, and herself. The footage was retrieved from the train security system 2 days later. The camera, mounted in the upper left corner of the car, showed a nearly empty compartment. 5 passengers were visible. An old man reading a newspaper, a high schooler glued to his phone, a woman in a business suit asleep in her seat, and Aya, standing near the rear doors, facing the mirror. Tokyo Metro trains have long mirrors installed by the doors so commuters can check their appearance. It's a cultural staple: neatness, order, presentation. Aya had done this countless times. But that morning something was different. At 7:16 a.m., she glanced into the mirror, and her reflection didn't move. It stared back, expressionless, slightly off-center. His head tilted just a little too far, the mouth a little too straight, the eyes blank, unblinking. Aya blinked, tilted her head. The reflection remained frozen. The feed showed her backing away slowly, confused. She turned to look behind her, as if expecting someone to jump out. Nothing. She stepped forward again. The reflection still didn't move, until it smiled. Only the reflection. Just a small, tight-lipped curve of the mouth that never reached the eyes. Aya stumbled back, bumping into the train wall. The man reading his newspaper didn't look up. The high schooler didn't notice. The train continued along the track as if nothing had changed. At 7:18, the reflection lifted its hand and placed it on the mirror's surface. But Aya didn't move. She was frozen, staring, trembling. The reflection's hand smeared slightly as it moved, leaving a faint red streak along the glass. That's when the mirror fogged, just for a second, despite the car's temperature being climate-controlled. The condensation spelled something out, quick and jerky. "Help me." The footage showed Aya looking around, desperate now. Her reflection was mimicking her again, only now it was too late. It had caught up. She pressed the emergency button on the wall. By the time security reached the car, Aya was gone. Just gone. The train never stopped between stations. No other passengers recalled her leaving. No one saw her get off. Her handbag was still on the floor. Her phone, smashed beneath one of the seats. The only thing left was the mirror, and the faintest handprint from the inside. That's when Tokyo Metro quietly contacted the police. The footage was never released to the public. But something strange started happening after that. Other passengers began reporting things. Small things, odd things. People would glance into the mirror and see themselves delayed by a few seconds, like the reflection was buffering. Some reported a second set of eyes, just behind them. Others claimed their reflections grinned when they weren't smiling. 3 separate passengers on 3 different trains filed complaints within a week, each saying they saw a girl standing inside the mirror. Always the same description. Long black hair, white blouse, face too pale to be healthy. No one could identify her. One video surfaced, shot secretly on a phone. It's blurry, low res, but it shows a woman standing in front of the mirror. Her reflection turns its head and walks away, while she remains standing still. Shortly after that clip circulated on social media, the poster's account vanished, deleted, every trace scrubbed. But the rumors only grew. They called her Mirror Girl, a modern ghost story, an urban legend born from surveillance and commuter fatigue. But the truth, the terrifying truth, was that it wasn't just legend. Aya's disappearance wasn't the first. Police linked at least 3 prior cases, women, all in their 20s, all last seen on the Shinjuku line, all reportedly acting strangely near the rear car mirrors. All vanished without a trace. No bodies. No video of them exiting the stations. Just silence. Just reflections. A quiet Tokyo blogger who went by the name Shin_22 decided to investigate. He rode the Shinjuku line every night for a week, always standing near the mirrors. Nothing happened. Until the 8th night. He didn't post the video himself. Someone else found the phone on the train's floor. Screen cracked. Camera still recording. The final 30 seconds of footage show Shin staring into the mirror. His reflection tilts its head just like Aya's head, then smiles, and then slowly lifts a hand. Only the reflection moves. Shin's real body stands frozen. A quiet, breathy voice, barely audible in the chaos, whispers, "One more, then I'm free." The camera falls, and Shin is never seen again. No blood, no scream, just the mirror, still, waiting, watching. You don't usually think of cemeteries as places to go viral, but that's exactly what Leo Reyes hoped for when he and his 2 friends, Jamir and Nico, started their YouTube ghost hunting channel, Filipino Paranormal. Their thing was visiting supposedly haunted spots across the provinces, forgotten churches, old Japanese tunnels, colonial-era ruins, and filming low-budget, late-night explorations. It was all in good fun. Cheap jump scares, flashlights flickering, screaming when bats flew overhead. They never expected to catch anything real, until they visited the cemetery in Siquijor. Locals called it Libingan ng Dilim, the graveyard of darkness. Even during the day, the canopy overhead was so thick with vines and tangled banyan branches that almost no sunlight ever touched the soil. The gravestones there were ancient, cracked, covered in moss. Many had no names, just symbols carved in a language no one recognized. Some said it used to be a burial site for Mangkukulam, witches and warlocks, outcasts who were feared even in death. The locals warned them not to go at night. They did it anyway. The 3 friends arrived just before midnight. A single dirt path snaked through the trees, ending at a broken iron gate. Beyond that, the cemetery yawned open. Acres of uneven earth, leaning crosses and chipped stone. Crickets chirped around them, but otherwise it was dead quiet.
No dogs barking.
No wind, just this thick, humid pressure in the air, like the world had stopped breathing. They set up their gear, GoPros, a cheap EMF reader, infrared flashlights, and started recording. Jamir took lead. He was the loud one, always performing for the camera. "All right, MGA Kaibigan," he said, voice dramatic. "We are now inside the legendary graveyard of darkness. If there are any spirits here, show yourselves." Nothing happened at first. Just the usual crunch of gravel beneath their shoes, the whisper of leaves in the dark. But 20 minutes in, while filming near a collapsed mausoleum, Nico froze. "Did you hear that?" They all stopped. Silence. Then something like dragging. Slow. Bit. Gritting against the soil. They pointed their flashlights toward the sound. At first, it looked like a large dog crawling between the graves. It was moving low, too low, its limbs bending in ways that didn't make sense. The body was pale, but not from fur. It was skin, human skin. But this wasn't a person. It had no clothes, no hair. Its face was featureless, except for a mouth that stretched too wide and eyes that were pure white. It crawled backward, upside down, its joints twisted, knees facing the wrong direction. Each movement made a squelching sound, like wet fabric tearing. They stood frozen. Then it stopped crawling and turned to face them. Its head cracked sideways, audibly, and it smiled. Jameer screamed. Nico dropped the camera. Leo stumbled back so fast he fell over a gravestone. But the thing didn't attack. It didn't lunge. It just mimicked them. Each movement, each scream, like it was rehearsing. Leo grabbed the camera and ran. They fled blindly through the cemetery, breath ragged, flashlights swinging wildly. But no matter where they turned, they kept ending up near that same broken mausoleum. Like the paths had changed. Like the graveyard was folding in on itself. Then they heard it again, dragging behind them. Closer now. Vet. Hungry. They didn't speak. Didn't look back. They sprinted toward the gate, which now stood wide open. Something they hadn't left it. As they crossed the threshold, the sound stopped. The jungle roared back to life. Crickets. Wind. The distant bark of a dog. The spell, whatever it had been, broke. They didn't speak all the way back to their hostel. Leo checked the footage the next day. Most of it was blurry. Too much movement. But one frame, just one, was perfectly clear. It showed the crawler standing upright now. His face had changed. It wore Leo's face. And it was smiling. He deleted the file. They never spoke of it again. Not online. Not to friends. Not even to each other. 2 weeks later, Jameer stopped posting in their group chat. Then Nico disappeared. Leo thought he'd imagined it all. That maybe the footage glitched. That fear made him see things. But then, one night, walking home, he passed a shop window. It was dark. Just his reflection in the glass. Except he wasn't moving. And behind his reflection was something crawling. There's something sacred about silence in an old church. Not just the absence of sound, but the depth of it. A silence so complete it presses in on you, listening as much as it's being listened to. That was what drew Carla and Jonah to the ruins of Święty Bartek, a 14th century church nestled in a crumbling Polish hillside, long forgotten by the living. Carla was a freelance travel documentarian, always on the hunt for eerie, off-the-path places. Jonah, her boyfriend and sound technician, joined her for a 2-week tour of Europe's abandoned religious sites. They were supposed to film haunting visuals, moody drone shots, cracked stained glass, architecture whispering of a god long gone. They weren't supposed to hear music. They arrived at Święty Bartek just after noon. The sky was slate gray, the air heavy with the scent of damp stone and fallen leaves. The church stood in partial ruin, its roof missing in places, ivy draped over the bell tower like a funeral veil. But the structure remained surprisingly intact. The pews, though warped by weather, were still lined in place. The altar was dust-covered but undisturbed. And at the back, looming above like a silent sentinel, was the organ. Massive, wooden, monolithic. It shouldn't have worked. The pipes were rusted. The bellows long collapsed. No power, no wind, just a dead relic. But it was beautiful in a skeletal kind of way. Carla set up her camera rig while Jonah walked the nave with a parabolic mic, recording ambient audio. The church swallowed their footsteps. Every creak and echo bounced for seconds before fading. "I'm picking up some weird low frequencies," Jonah muttered. Carla was adjusting her lens. "Could be whined through the pipes." "Maybe, but it's patterned. Like intervals. Almost musical." She paused. "You mean like notes?" Jonah nodded slowly. "Like something's playing really deep." They stood still, listening. Nothing but the sound of their breath and distant crows. That's when the organ played. 3 notes. Low, slow, perfectly spaced. Jonah dropped the mic. They turned toward the organ in unison. No one was there. "Is it automated?" Carla asked. "It's from the 1300s, Jonah replied. "There's no automation." He walked toward it, cautiously, like approaching a sleeping animal. Carla followed, camera rolling. The organ loomed over them, ancient and inert. Dust coated the keys. The pedals were warped, but everything was undisturbed. No signs of movement, no tracks, no hidden power source. Jonah pressed a key. Nothing. Another. Still nothing. Then the organ played by itself. This time a full chord, deep, harmonic, vibrating through their bones. Not from the pipes above. It felt like it came from inside the stone itself. Carla backed away. Okay. We got what we need. But Jonah was staring at the pipes. I swear something just moved up there. She followed his gaze. In the far upper row, barely visible, a shape ducked behind the pipes. Humanoid. Thin. Pale. Carla turned and bolted. Jonah hesitated, eyes still on the organ, but followed. They left everything behind. The mics, the tripods, her favorite lens. They drove 3 towns over and checked into a small inn. That night, Carla backed up the footage. The audio track captured it all. The first 3 notes. The chord. Then, layered faintly beneath the tones, something else. A voice. Barely audible. But there. Domini, libera me. Lord, deliver me. Jonah tried to sleep, but the music followed him. In his dreams, he stood in the ruined church. Alone. The pews were filled with shadows. The organ played a mournful hymn. One he recognized, but shouldn't. He woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. Carla was already up, reviewing more footage. I found something, she said. On the wide shot, at the moment the organ played, the shadow in the pipes wasn't hiding. It was watching. Eyes glinting. Skin stretched too tight. And it moved in a twitchy, bird-like way, swaying to the notes. Do you see that? She whispered. Jonah didn't respond, because he recognized the tune now. It wasn't just music. It was a funeral hymn, written in 1781, centuries after the organ was built. And yet, the tune was perfectly played. Jonah turned to Carla. We need to delete it. All of it. She hesitated. But this could make our channel. He cut her off. We weren't alone in there. Carla agreed reluctantly. They scrubbed the files, threw out the SD cards, burned the backup hard drive in a barrel behind the inn. But it didn't matter. That night, in the silence of their room, the organ played again. Not outside, not from a speaker, from inside the walls. Jonah pressed his ear to the drywall. The notes were clearer now, closer, and beneath them, the voice again. Liberate me. They fled, left the country, never spoke of the church again. But sometimes Carla dreams of the nave, the pews full, the altar lit with candles, the ruined roof sealed again, and the music calling her back. Every note, perfect. Every note, alive. There's a reason old hospitals feel haunted, even when they're empty. The walls remember things. Pain, desperation, last breaths. But sometimes it's not the walls. Sometimes it's something deeper, buried in concrete and flickering lights. That's what they said about the decommissioned West Wing of the St. Adrian Medical Center in Ohio, a 4-story brick facility partially shuttered since the early 2000s. Rumors always swirled. Experimental surgeries, missing patients, staff suicides. But it was just talk. Until the night Room 12 called for help, 20 years after it was sealed shut. Emily Kerrigan had worked security at St. Adrian for 5 years. It was a dull job. Long nights pacing clean corridors. Occasional drunks. A patient who slipped past check-in. But mostly it was quiet, except for the West Wing. That part of the hospital had been closed after an electrical fire gutted the upper floor. No one used it. The doors were locked. No power. No reason to go in. Then came the code blue. It was 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. Emily was in the security office when the panel lit up. A code blue cardiac arrest registered on her console. Room 12. West Wing. She stared. That wasn't possible. There was no Room 12 anymore. That wing had no active beds, no patients, no functioning systems. And yet, The alarm was real. Beeping.
Urgent.
She radioed up. No answer. So she went alone. The hallway was colder than the rest of the hospital. Dim emergency lights glowed along the floorboards. Paint peeled in sheets. The smell of old smoke lingered beneath industrial cleanser. The air felt dense, like it hadn't been moved in years. Her flashlight cut through the gloom. Room 12 was near the end of the corridor, its door still sealed with hazard tape. She stood in front of it, heart pounding. The code blue panel was still flashing. She reached for the handle, turned. Inside, the room was exactly as it had been left. Dust-covered monitors, a rusted four-stand, an overturned gurney. And yet, something felt off. Warm, occupied. Emily stepped inside. The beeping continued, but not from her console. It was in the room. A heart monitor. Beep, beep, steady and strong. She turned toward the sound. A hospital bed clean. Sheets neatly tucked. And on it, a figure. Lying perfectly still. Covered to the chest. Face turned away. She should have run. Called it in. But something compelled her forward. Like gravity. Like a whispered suggestion. She reached the foot of the bed. The figure's chest rose and fell shallow, but steady. That's when the overhead lights flickered on. Fully. Bright white, as if the room had never lost power. The intercom clicked to life. Room 12, active. Emily backed away. Then the figure moved. It turned its head slowly toward her. Its face was faceless. Smooth skin where features should have been. No eyes, no nose. Just the faint indent of a mouth. But it spoke. Without sound. Just the movement of lips. "You saw me." The light snapped off. Emily screamed. The next thing she remembered, she was running down the hallway. She slammed the stairwell door behind her and didn't stop until she was back at the security station. The panel was blank. No code blue. No alert. But the timestamp remained in the system log. 2:14 a.m. room 12. When she pulled the security feed, her blood froze. 2:13, the hallway camera flickered. Then it showed her entering the West Wing. Then static. It stayed black for 12 minutes. When it came back, she wasn't alone. A figure stood behind her, just outside the security office. Unmoving. Watching. Faceless. It disappeared as soon as the camera refreshed. The hospital tried to delete the footage. But Emily had already made a copy. She quit the next day. Since then, other staff have reported strange things near the sealed West Wing. Doors found unlocked. Cold drafts in rooms with no windows. The intercom crackling to life unprovoked. And twice, only twice, room 12 has activated again. Each time, the system logs a heart rate. And a name. Not of any patient, but of the person who saw it last. Started with sleepwalking, or at least that's what Alyssa Morgan thought. She wasn't prone to it. Never had been, not even as a child. But ever since she moved into the second-floor apartment above the laundromat in St. Louis, she began waking up in strange positions. At first, it was small things, lying perpendicular across the mattress, a pillow on the floor, a light left on she didn't remember using. But then it escalated. One morning, she woke up sitting upright, arms folded in her lap, like she'd been waiting for something. The next, she was on the living room floor, curled into the corner with her eyes still closed. That day, she bought a cheap night vision baby cam and aimed it at her bed. She expected maybe a few minutes of footage, some tossing and turning. Instead, what she captured shook her to her core. At 3:13 a.m., she sat bolt upright, not groggily, not like someone waking up, but like a puppet being yanked by invisible strings. Her spine straight, her head slowly rotating until it faced the camera directly. Then she smiled. Not a sleepy grin, not something human. It was too wide, too dry, all teeth. And then her head began to twitch, not subtly, but violently, like someone flicking the stick of a joystick left to right. Her chin jerked unnaturally fast, side to side, like a glitching video. And then, clear as day, she laughed. The sound was low. Male. She checked the audio twice. 3 times. Ran it through a filter. The voice was unmistakably not hers. The tone was too deep, too old. She played it again. He watches through your eyes now. She shut the laptop and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, her reflection in the mirror seemed a second too slow. She dismissed it. Maybe she was exhausted. Maybe her brain was playing tricks. But then, that night, she checked the live stream again. 3:13 a.m. Same thing. Bolt upright. Staring. Twitching. Laughing. But this time, before lying back down, she turned her head toward the camera and winked. The stream crashed. Alyssa uninstalled the app, hid the camera, tried to reset her routine. No more caffeine, meditation, sleeping pills, anything to stop the episodes. It didn't help. Neighbors began asking strange questions. Do you have someone living with you? Are you okay? We heard voices at night. Who's the guy that comes over in the middle of the night? She was always alone. Then the dreams began. In them, she stood in a long hallway, identical to the one outside her apartment. Every door she opened led back to her bedroom. But each time something was different. In one, her bed was full of soil. In another, a man sat on the edge of the mattress, his back to her, head twitching in that same erratic motion. In the worst one, she was watching herself sleep. From above, eyes open, smiling. At 3:13 a.m., always the same time, she contacted a sleep clinic. They agreed to monitor her for one night. She was hooked up to sensors, cameras, wires, all of it. At 3:13 a.m., the monitoring equipment spiked. Heart rate, 187 BPM. Oxygen levels dropped. Her body went stiff. Then, something impossible happened. She spoke in perfect Latin for exactly 66 seconds. The doctor later translated it. He walks when I sleep. His house is mine now. The clinic refused to release the footage. Alyssa left before dawn. Desperate, she set up motion capture triggers, devices used by ghost hunters. Every single one failed. Batteries drained. SD cards wiped. One camera even melted, plastic warped like it had been in a fire. That same night, her landlord slipped a letter under her door. Please keep the noise down at night. Other tenants are complaining about the man who laughs. She hadn't laughed in weeks. By now, Alyssa was terrified to sleep. She stayed up for 72 hours straight. But on the 4th night, her body gave out. She passed out on the couch. When she awoke, her bathroom mirror had been smashed. Written in red marker, though she owned none, were 3 words: "We share now." A final video surfaced from her cloud account 2 weeks later. It hadn't been uploaded manually. The timestamp was 3:13 a.m. In it, she stood facing the camera, still. Too still. Her head twitched again. Faster now, like a metronome on overdrive. Then she whispered, "He doesn't sleep. Why should I?" The screen went black. No one's heard from Alyssa since. There's a tunnel just outside of Pittsburgh that no one talks about. It doesn't appear on most modern maps, and if you ask locals, they'll either shrug or change the subject. Officially, it was part of the Allegheny Rail Network, decommissioned in the early 1970s after a series of unexplained signal disruptions and a landslide that buried the eastern mouth. But if you find the right coordinates and take the overgrown trail through the pines, you'll reach it. A crumbling stone arch swallowed by the hillside. A black mouth full of cold air and silence. That's where the video was shot. 2 friends, Brandon and Vic, ran a now-defunct YouTube channel called Lost Spine. It was part urbex, part horror review, mostly low-budget fun. On October 18th, 2023, they uploaded a video titled, "Exploring the Cursed Tunnel in Allegheny County? Gone Wrong?" The runtime was just under 12 minutes. The thumbnail was blurred. The video has since been removed, but not before several thousand people saw it. The footage begins with drone shots of the forest canopy, the late autumn leaves like blood-soaked lace. Then it cuts to Brandon, flashlight in hand, grinning nervously in front of the tunnel. "You can feel the cold from here," he says. "It's like a fridge, even though it's 60 degrees out." Vic, off-camera, agrees. You can hear his breath already visible. They make some jokes about Stephen King, go over the local legends. One of them mentions a train that derailed in 1944, killing over 30 passengers. Others claim it was a worker sealed inside during construction. But none of that was confirmed. Just whispers, shadows. At 2:37 into the video, they enter. The tunnel immediately swallows all natural light. The beam from Brandon's flashlight seems to bend, like it's being absorbed. The walls are wet. The floor crunches with debris. For minutes in, they stop walking. There's a sound. Faint, high-pitched, crying. At first, it seems distant, some animal echoing from deeper in the tunnel. But the longer they stand there, the clearer it becomes. It's a woman, weeping, soft, hiccuping sobs bouncing off the stone in rhythms that feel too precise to be natural. The kind of rhythm that doesn't echo, it repeats. Brandon whispers, "You hearing that?" Vic swears under his breath. They press forward. At 6:10, their camera shakes slightly. The sobbing stops. Everything goes silent. Then, from deep within the tunnel, a white shape appears. It's hard to make out. The camera struggles to focus, but it looks like a woman in a tattered dress. Barefoot, long dark hair covering her face. She's just standing there, motionless. Vic calls out, "Ma'am, are you okay?" No response. Brandon zooms in. That's when she runs. Not toward them, but into the tunnel, sprinting in total darkness with impossible speed. The light barely keeps up. Her legs don't bend correctly. Her arms are too long. She doesn't bounce like a person. She glides. They chase. Not for long. Because at 7:02, the scream happens. It's loud, earth-shaking, peaks the mic levels and knocks the camera from Vic's hands. Static consumes the video for several seconds. When it returns, Brandon is vomiting against the tunnel wall. Vic is sobbing, knees pulled to his chest. The camera, now lying sideways, shows their flashlight beams twitching like dying fireflies. There is no woman. They crawl out. The video ends. But what happens next was worse. 3 days after uploading it, Brandon deletes all his social media. He posts one last comment on the video. "The sound followed me home. It's in the walls. Don't listen to it at night." Vic is hospitalized for an unexplained seizure. The hospital notes describe audio hallucinations. He claims the scream never stopped. A Redditor who downloaded the video before it was pulled ran an audio scan. The scream lasts for 6 seconds. But the waveform shows something odd. There are layers. Within the scream, barely detectable, are words. They repeat every 0. 6 seconds. "Come down where I wait. Come down where I wait. Come down where I wait." But the creepiest part? The final second of the audio shows a human whisper. Clear, deliberate, layered after the scream. "Now you know where I am." Brandon hasn't been seen since November. Vic stopped responding to messages. And anyone who plays that audio at full volume reports the same thing. A sudden drop in temperature, a faint sobbing from behind them, and the scream just outside the tunnel. Plumbers are used to weird things. Water heaters that hiss like voices. Pipes that rattle with no explanation. Crawl spaces filled with things best left unnamed. But even seasoned pros have their limits. And for Dan Kellerman, a third-generation plumber from Roanoke, Virginia, that limit came on a routine service call to a quiet brick ranch house on the edge of town. The homeowner, a polite older woman named Mrs. Hewitt, called about low water pressure and a faint thumping in the kitchen wall. Nothing urgent. Nothing unusual. She offered coffee. Dan declined. He just wanted to fix the problem and move on. The house was quiet, clean. The kitchen still had its original wallpaper, cherries and vines fading into beige. He tapped the walls with a knuckle, listening for hollow spots. One panel near the floor sounded different, softer. He crouched, ran his fingers along the molding, and found a small seam, likely access to the crawlspace. "Ma'am," he called out, "you got a panel back here. You ever go under the house?" She appeared in the doorway, her smile tight. "Not since my husband passed. I don't like dark places." Dan nodded. "Mind if I take a look?" She hesitated, then said, "Just be careful down there. The air's strange." He pried the panel open. Behind it, a narrow wooden tunnel led into darkness. Dust motes swirled in his flashlight beam. He climbed in, belly down, tool bags scraping behind him. The crawl space opened up slightly, just enough to crouch. Pipes snaked along the beams like metal veins. He followed the main line, tracing it toward the kitchen wall. The sound was louder here, a rhythmic thump. Not mechanical, almost organic. Then he heard breathing. He froze. The sound wasn't his. It was slow, wet, just a few feet ahead. He raised his flashlight. There, wedged between two support beams, was a face. Pale, motionless, eyes wide and glassy, lips curled into a grin too wide for its skull. It didn't move. Dan couldn't tell if it was a mask, a mannequin, or something worse. He dropped his light. In the darkness, something scraped against wood. He scrambled backward, hitting his head. The air grew heavier, thick with rot. He grabbed the flashlight, flicked it on. The face was gone. He backed out, heart pounding, and replaced the panel without a word. Mrs. Hewitt stood in the same spot, same smile. "Did you find it?" she asked. Dan shook his head.
No leak.
"Might be air in the line." She nodded slowly. "Thank you for checking." He left without charging her. That night he couldn't sleep. The face haunted him. Too real, too still. That grin. The next morning he rewatched the body cam footage. At the exact moment his flashlight hits the face, the timestamp stutters, 1:47:33. Then 1:47:31. Then again, repeating. But the worst part? The face blinks. Once. Slowly. Then vanishes between frames. Dan deleted the file. Or tried to. It wouldn't go away. Each time he erased it, it reappeared, renamed, recoded, hidden in another folder. After a week, he stopped checking. But that didn't stop the sounds. Thumping in his kitchen wall. Scraping beneath the floors. And once, just once, he opened his pantry to find the crawlspace panel from Mrs. Hewitt's house, screwed into the back wall. That night, he received a video file on his phone. No sender. Just a clip. 10 seconds long. The camera crawls slowly through darkness. And at the end, face filling the frame, it smiles. Then whispers, "You open the panel. Now you're in the crawlspace too." When the pandemic forced everyone indoors, most people feared the loneliness, the isolation. But for Cassidy Hart, the worst part wasn't being alone. It was realizing she wasn't. At least not always. She worked as a project coordinator for a logistics firm, clocking endless hours on Zoom calls from her one-bedroom apartment in Chicago. Days blurred into nights. Her webcam became a mirror she stared into more than her own reflection. But everything changed during one Monday morning meeting in November 2020. It was a routine check-in. 5 people on screen. Standard agenda. Cassidy sat at her desk, coffee in hand, half listening as her manager droned on about spreadsheets and forecasts. Her webcam was on. She could see herself in the bottom corner. Shoulder-length auburn hair, pale skin, the same gray hoodie she'd worn all weekend. Then something shifted. For just a second, a 6th window appeared on the Zoom grid. No name.
No audio.
Just a black box. Gone in half a second. Cassidy blinked, confused. No one else seemed to notice. She shook it off. But later that day, during another meeting, it happened again. The sixth box. Still no name. Still silent. But this time, there was a face. Blurry. Pale. Partially obscured in shadow. Only visible for a second. She rewound the recording, paused at the right frame. Someone was behind her. In the video window just over her shoulder, a figure stood. No facial features. Just a human form. Tall. Slumped. Watching. But when she turned around in real life, her apartment was empty. She convinced herself it was a glitch. Compression artifact. Zoom wasn't perfect. Until it happened again. And again. Always during a call. Always behind her. The figure became clearer each time. In one call, its head tilted. In another, it raised its hand. Eventually, it began mimicking her. When she nodded, it nodded. When she leaned in, it leaned further. In one frame, it opened its mouth like it was screaming. But there was no sound. She showed the footage to her friend Alina, a tech analyst. Alina watched in silence, face growing pale. "That's not a video glitch," she whispered. "That thing is tracking motion independently. It's not synced to your feed." Cassidy muted the video. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Alina said, "it's not part of the background. It's acting like a person in the room." Cassidy stopped using Zoom, switched to audio calls, kept her webcam off. But the presence didn't stop. One night, while on the phone with her boss, her screen lit up. A Zoom call was open. She hadn't launched it. One participant. Her. The camera showed her desk. Her room. She wasn't there. But someone was. The figure. Standing perfectly still in her chair. When she tried to close the window, her mouse wouldn't respond. The figure slowly turned toward the camera. And smiled. Her power flickered. Her lights went out. Her phone died. She woke up the next morning on the floor. The computer was off. Her webcam had been snapped cleanly in half. She quit her job that day. But it wasn't over. Random Zoom windows would open for a split second, even with no programs running. Her microphone would activate on its own. Sometimes, in the dead silence of her apartment, her speakers would click, and a voice, soft and familiar, would whisper, "You let me in." Cassidy moved, got a new laptop, changed her number, deleted her accounts. But one night she received an email. No subject, no body, just an attached video file. Zoom_final.mov. She clicked. The video was 30 seconds long. It showed her, sitting at her new desk in her new apartment. Only she wasn't recording. And in the last 2 seconds, the camera slowly zooms in, closer and closer, until it passes through her eyes. The screen cuts to black. And the last thing heard is a whisper. "Your camera's still on." Cassidy hasn't been seen online since. But sometimes, in the middle of a Zoom meeting, someone's screen will flash. Just for a moment. And a sixth window appears. No name. Just a silent figure smiling. For most people, haunted dolls live in movies, on dusty thrift shop shelves, or in the clickbait depths of late-night YouTube videos. They're props, cheap jump scares wrapped in cracked porcelain and stitched grins. But for Mia Morales, they were a paycheck. Her channel, Curio Nights, had started as a hobby during lockdown, just her tiny apartment in Mexico City, and a growing collection of oddities she found online. Rusted music boxes, ancient books, cursed jewelry, and yes, dolls. Her niche was streaming live investigations, where she'd sit in a dimly lit room, holding or displaying one object at a time, and invite viewers to watch with her to see if anything weird happened. It was part performance, part authenticity. But people ate it up. And every now and then, something did happen. A flickering light, a whisper, a door creaking open. Nothing groundbreaking, but enough to keep her audience hooked. One item, though, stood out from the start. She got it through a private message. Anonymous. Just a photo and a short note. The picture showed a classic Victorian-style porcelain doll. Pale face, dark ringlets, black lace dress, tiny leather shoes. But the eyes were strange. Most dolls had that lifeless glassy stare. but this one seemed almost aware. Even in the still image. The note read, "This one cries at night. Keep her cold. Do not cover the mirror." Mia was intrigued. She asked for a price. The sender never replied. 2 weeks later, the package arrived with no return address. Unboxing it on stream drew a record number of live viewers. The chat exploded with reactions. "She looks alive! Those eyes! I don't like this one." Mia laughed nervously as she lifted the doll from the box. It was heavier than it looked. The limbs were jointed, but stiff, and the head was slightly tilted, as if resisting being straightened. There was no manufacturer tag, no writing, no history. Just the doll and the cryptic warning. "Keep her cold. Do not cover the mirror." She placed the doll on her shelf, facing a full-length mirror in her bedroom where she streamed nightly. That first night, nothing unusual happened. A few creaks from the hallway. Some chat members claimed to see the doll's reflection blink, but others said it was a trick of the light. Mia chalked it up to audience hysteria. But by the third night, something changed. It started at 2:41 a.m., well after most of her audience had signed off. Mia had just wrapped the stream and was reviewing the footage when a soft sound filtered through her headphones. A faint sobbing. She rewound. The crying wasn't her. It wasn't part of the background noise or the street sounds outside. It was something else. She boosted the audio. The sobbing was high-pitched, muffled, and rhythmic, like a child weeping through closed lips. She panned the playback video and froze. The doll's head had shifted. In the beginning of the stream, it had been facing forward, staring blankly into the mirror. But in the later frames, just before the crying started, its head was turned slightly to the right. Not much, just enough to be impossible to ignore. She checked her room. The doll still faced forward. Had she imagined it? The chat replay was going insane. Did anyone see that? The head moved. Yo. Check 2:38 timestamp. Why is she crying? Mia didn't sleep that night, but the next evening curiosity won out. She went live again. She positioned the camera directly in front of the doll and placed a second webcam facing the mirror for a split-screen setup. Nearly 90 people tuned in. She said nothing for the first 20 minutes. Just stared into the mirror, watching her audience react in real time. Around 3:10 a.m., it happened again. The sobbing returned. But this time, it didn't come from the stream audio, it came from her apartment. Faint but close. Behind her, Mia turned, heart hammering. The room was empty. The mirror showed her reflection. The doll was still sitting calmly on its shelf. But in the mirror, only in the mirror, the doll's lips were moving. Not opening and closing, not chewing. Just trembling, like it was sobbing. And then, the eyes bled. It was slow and nearly imperceptible. A single red line ran from the corner of one glassy eye, trailing down the porcelain cheek like a tear. Then another. The chat lit up in all caps. People were screaming in the comments. Some begged her to run. Some accused her of faking it. But the weirdest thing? Her backup webcam, the one filming the mirror, crashed. Only the main feed remained, and the crying got louder. Mia stood, knocking over her chair, and backed away. She whispered, "Stop!" But the doll didn't stop. Kept weeping, blood dripping steadily now. Her apartment felt warped, like the air was pressing in, too thick to breathe. The mirror shimmered, like water, and for just a second, just a blink, the doll wasn't alone. Something stood behind it. A tall, gaunt silhouette. No eyes, no face, just arms, dozens of them, stretching outward. The stream ended abruptly. Viewers said it just cut to static. No outro. No sign-off. Mia's profile vanished by morning.
No tweets. No applause.
No response to comments. Her channel was locked. A week passed. Then two. Eventually, someone posted a short clip on Reddit. Footage they'd saved from the live stream. Just the sobbing and the mirror. The original file was corrupted. But in the background, just before the feed cut out, A voice whispered, clear as day. She wasn't cold enough. Authorities later visited Mia's apartment after her landlord reported an overpowering smell. Inside, the walls were covered in handprints, child-sized, smeared in what looked like rust. The mirror had shattered from the inside. And the doll? The doll was gone. All they found was her camera, still recording, pointed at the empty shelf, and the sound of faint crying, continuing for over 6 hours. If these stories sent chills down your spine, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, because the next video might be even darker. Don't watch alone. We'll be waiting